The dilapidated state of the city of Johannesburg, particularly the Joburg CBD, continues to be an eyesore in the city, and it's increasingly losing its former glory and world-class status. Some would argue it already has. But more and more people, including city dwellers, businesses and civil society, are in disbelief at the city of Johannesburg's inability to deal with the degeneration, which is happening at an alarming rate. Rubbish is overflowing onto the sidewalks, making it almost impossible for pedestrians to walk past. And these and other conditions, including complaints of crime, drug peddling, and of course, broad daylight prostitution and robbery, have caused the city to be a source of uncomfortable public discourse. And now we are about to delve into a conversation with the City of Joburg's Executive Mayor Thapelo Amad, who joins us now in studio. Mr. Ahmed, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much, Sakina, and thanks to your viewers at home.
So just listening to that introduction, painting a picture of the state of the city of Johannesburg, the CBD in particular, as the first citizen of the city, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great because I take it as a constructive criticism. It's not an attack to a certain degree. It is important for us to understand. Remember, I'm only a month and a couple of weeks in the office. So it doesn't take a rocket science for us to understand the dynamics. The first tour and oversight that I did, it was in Region F, which is F1, the inner city. And the second tour that we've done, it was in Region A, where we launched a campaign called Mayor on Duty, so that we can understand the dynamics and the heartbeat of the residents on the ground. What is it that needs to be done? Because I've taken a position that we can't be the mayor who's office-based, but we need to be the mayor on duty, the mayor who has to be able to mobilize all entities to expedite service delivery. So the inner city, of course, yes, it's decaying, but there's also appetite from a private sector, because remember, if you were to listen to our first speech, we also invited stakeholders of the city, where we said public sector must come on board, faith-based organizations must come on board, the residents at large must come on board. So as a city and government, we can do this much, but we also need the communities themselves to take pride of their city. A person like me who grew up in Soweto and knowing and understanding the city and the pride of the inner city, where we used to go to do shopping, and when you go now, there is no longer those economies, business has collapsed. How do we resuscitate? We are inviting stakeholders, we are inviting churches, we are inviting communities. If you could see, there are active communities in the inner city as we speak today.
But what is what was your observation in terms of what you saw, firstly, and secondly, you spoke about just getting a pulse, a sense of the heartbeat of those who live, work, and do business in the city. What did they say to you? Are they happy about what's going on there?
Look, they're not happy. Of course, they're not happy. From our end, we need to say, give us some time, just be patient. The city itself, it's reshaping. Politics in the city of Johannesburg are reimagining. The city is going to a right direction where we are right now. Remember, as the city of Johannesburg, we are a city that is accommodative of immigrants. We have a population of about 6-point-something million people who are in the city as we speak. And we still have people who are coming from other regions or other parts of the world or other regions of the country, where everyone wants to come here to fend for themselves. Because remember, a city of a world-class African city, the city of Johannesburg, it is the city that which is not only the economic hub of the country, but it is Africa at large. So yes, there is an upset from the communities. Yes, there is stench that is stinking in the inner city. Yes, of course, there is a high volume of litter in the inner city. But when we inherited the city, you must know that there were vast areas of service delivery that we need to prioritize on. Right.
And you see, it is this, when we inherited, and every administration comes in to talk about what they have inherited. But the reality is, all of you, even if the mayors change, have been part of that council.
Correct.
For a certain amount of time.
Correct.
So what are you doing as a collective to improve the lives of the people of the city of Johannesburg?
Correct. You know, let's talk about the litter itself in the city, or let's talk about the debt. And let's also invite the narrative that has been perpetuated on media. And let's talk about the incident that, let's assume that the pastor was on social media and he called upon the mayors, right? If you look at that incident, there was a skip bin in that precinct, right? So instead of residents or whoever is using the area throwing litter into the skip bin, because the skip bin was half empty or half full, if you were to look at that video, however, it's a behavioral pattern that we need to change. It's a behavioral construct that we need to change as residents of the city of Johannesburg. Let me give you an example, or cite an example. I was once driving before I became the mayor, and then I stopped on an intersection. The taxi pulled over, it stopped next to me. The driver opened up the window, and then he threw a banana peel on the ground. I opened up the window, and I said, hey, Mtaga Baba, you know, Koko, and perhaps Ukoko Amangandlula here. My granny can pass here. And anganya tell her that banana peel, awe, ashaiswa imoto. So you don't want that on your conscience. So, the driver, without any arrogance, he opened up the door, picked up his banana peel. He drove. There was no fight. But the people who were in the taxi, they were all quiet about it, in as much as they saw that this man is doing something that is wrong. So we are complicit of, I think it's a pattern of behavior. But if we are outspoken, and as a city, we also need to educate the people. We shouldn't be the city that punishes the people, because people will say, why don't you enforce bylaws? Why don't you deploy? Why don't you arrest people?
Which is a valid question.
Which is a valid question, yes, right? It is a valid question. But we also need to educate people. We shouldn't be seen as a city that doesn't care, but we should be seen as a city that cares. We educate, and then once we see that at least we have infused, the church itself has a mandate to educate. The church itself has a mandate to clean the precinct where they operate. So as the city, we need to collaborate. The least that the pastor could have done is to call upon the city first before going on to the social media.
But they said that they had.
No,
they
haven't.
had alerted you to all of this. But also, again, you can't pass the buck. You can't make this everybody else's responsibility. You have to take responsibility first and foremost, because, as you say, there are bylaws that actually do criminalize some of these acts. Why aren't you enforcing it? You're talking right now, Mr. Mayor, about education. You don't have the resources to do that. I put that to you. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources to do that. So what you can do, what is within your purview right now, is to enforce bylaws through the resources that you do have at your disposal.
Correct. We do enforce bylaws. It might be perceived as an isolated case. Remember,
it's not an isolated case.
Remember, media has its own interest. Let me tell you this. That area alone, it is cleaned 3 times a day. That area alone, it is cleaned 3 times a day. And media will never take an interest and go there on the ground. They will only go when there's a certain narrative that has been perpetuated. So that's,
no, but you can't blame the media for this.
No, I'm not blaming anyone. They are right. This is why we are here, correct? This is why we are here. We are here to account to the residents through these platforms.
So if you know...
And we acknowledge.
If you know, Mr. Mayor, that particular area is a problem, and as you say, if that area is cleaned 3 times a day, why aren't you enforcing your bylaws more keenly there? Why aren't your law enforcers there to make sure that they stop everyone else from littering there once it has been cleaned?
Correct.
Why do you clean up and walk away?
Hence why I said, for me, I take it as a constructive criticism. As we speak right now, there are law enforcement agencies which are patrolling in the city, not because of the incident itself, but remember there was also a lack of empathy from the administrative wing. Today, I can assure you that I spoke to two of my colleagues, which is the administrative, the MD of Joburg Water, for argument's sake. You text him 5 o'clock in the morning. He answers you. You'd expect that you text him at 5 o'clock and then he'll respond around 7 while everyone is awake. The culture of the city is also changing. The culture of the administrative wing of the city is also changing. It takes willingness and it takes people who wants to take our city into the next level. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with one of the stakeholders. In that meeting, I was able to secure a prospect of about 9.5 billion, where this company says, we are willing to give you this a loan, but it will come in a form of a finance model when you're taking a finance. So it comes at an interest rate of about 2%. You only pay 2% for the period of 5 years without paying the amount of the loan. It's only the percentage. And then after 5 years, then you will pay for the next 15 years. So these are the discussions.
So what is this for? What would this loan potentially be for?
It is for service delivery issues. It is for technologies, for smart city, where we can deploy.
What smart city? A decade ago, we were talking about the installation of CCTV cameras in the city of Johannesburg. A few weeks ago, you signed a new memorandum of understanding, again, around cameras. And
Correct.
we see those cameras capturing crime that you are doing very little about, because the inner city right now is such a dangerous place that people who don't have to be there don't venture there. So how is it helping us?
You are correct. Remember, I'm not in the office for the past decade. I'm only a month.
No. I'm saying this started
correct.
more than a decade ago.
All right.
You have belatedly, about 2-3 weeks ago,
Correct.
signed a new memorandum of understanding.
Correct.
And yet we don't see the return on investment.
There is.
Where?
There is in the city.
Where, Mr. Mayor? How many people have you convicted as a result of the installation of that technology?
There is a few of them.
What is a few?
I'm telling you, there is a few of them. I can't give you the number from the top of my head. There is a few of them. We have various programs which are also successful, and part of those programs, I was there on the ground.
Talk to me about the successful programs, because
I was also there on the ground.
people of Johannesburg fear walking on the streets of the CBD. So which successful programs do you have?
Let me tell you a story. I think 3 days ago, we've launched a campaign on the Easter holiday of JMPD. That campaign was from JMPD. I was on that roadblock, right? We were deploying those mechanisms. I personally was fortunate to stop
Which mechanisms now? I'm just
You're talking about
to...
technology. You're talking about camera. Yes,
just
remember
tell us exactly where in terms of the story that you're relating.
That one.
Yeah.
It was in Kramerville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the CBD and what's happening in the CBD.
I'm representing the city of Johannesburg.
Yes, but I'm talking about a specific area in the city of Johannesburg.
Correct.
Which is the CBD.
Correct. I was in Newville last week in a roadblock.
Yes.
Where we successfully arrested. I was there, personally.
Okay, so you arrested people based on what you found at the roadblock?
We used cameras. Some of the cameras that you are making reference to, they were used in that roadblock.
So how many people have you, in the last month, since you've taken office and you've been on the ground, operational at some of these stings, how many people have you arrested?
In that roadblock alone, in 3 days, in a 3-day operation, we were able to arrest about 502.
How many cameras are there in the city of Johannesburg?
I wouldn't tell you tentatively how many cameras are there in the city of Johannesburg, because some of the cameras, they belong to the private sector. Some of the cameras, they belong to business that is in the inner city. And we are just...
I'm talking about the ones that belong to the city, the ones that you have control over as the city of Johannesburg.
I don't have that number.
So that memorandum of understanding that you entered into with the private sector a few weeks ago, how many cameras are you talking about there?
The memorandum of understanding that you are making reference to, it was the JMPD street cameras.
How many cameras?
I don't have it from the top of my head.
All right, what we'll do is we'll leave it there, but I think, Mr. Mayor, you can see that there is a huge problem. There's a serious problem with not just the grime that brought you here, unfortunately, in the city, but also the crime and many other issues. But I'm hoping that we will have opportunity for further engagement.
We will definitely.
Right. That, unfortunately, is all we have time for this morning. The mayor, executive mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Mr. Thapelo Amad, in conversation with us about the public grappling with what has become of the City of Johannesburg, the CBD in particular, where crime and grime seems to be a constant problem. And hopefully the mayor will join us again.